Imagine your city's power grid goes down, not just for an afternoon, but, for a whole month.
Oh, wow. Yeah, complete chaos.
Right. I mean, supply chains halt, grocery store shelves are completely empty, and there's just no timeline for when things will get back to normal.
None at all.
So how long would it take for your loyal friends or your polite neighbors, your well-mannered colleagues, to just turn on you?
That is the big question.
500 years ago, a tortured diplomat named Niccolo Machiavelli answered that exact question. And his answer was pretty brutal.
It is entirely brutal. And honestly, that is precisely why we are still talking about it today.
Yeah.
Because when survival is on the line, people just do not behave the way we wish they would. They don't adhere to clean philosophical ideals.
Which brings us to the mission for this deep dive. Welcome in, by the way. Today, we are peeling back the layers of one of the most infamous texts in human history, Machiavelli's The Prince.
Along with his really detailed historical accounts of the warlords Cesare Borgia and Castruccio Castracani.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are going to specifically look at his core assumptions about human nature. We want to understand how people really behave when the chips are down.
Yeah, during wars, instability, extreme uncertainty.
Right. And to set the stage for you, it's vital to remember the context of these sources. Machiavelli wasn't, sitting in an ivory tower dreaming up a theoretical utopia.
Not at all. He was writing a literal survival manual for a chaotic, blood-soaked 16th century Italy.
It was a rough time.
Very. And he was a man who had been at the absolute highest levels of government, only to be tortured, exiled, and completely sidelined.
So he had seen the dark side of politics up close.
Exactly. So he is observing men exactly as he found them out in the wild, completely stripped of their polite societal masks.
Okay, let's unpack this, because reading through these sources, Machiavelli seems to have a completely bleak view of human beings. Does he really think everyone is just a traitor waiting for a good opportunity?
Well, he lays it out with zero sugarcoating in chapter 17 of The Prince. He assesses that men are generally ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous.
Wow, tell us how you really feel.
Right. He asserts that as long as you are succeeding as a leader, and as long as actual danger is far away, people will offer you their blood, their property, their children.
But the very second a crisis hits.
The second the danger arrives at their doorstep, they vanish. Or worse, they actively revolt against you.
It sounds like the ultimate description of fair weather friends. He's basically saying that loyalty is just a luxury at peacetime.
What's fascinating here is that he identifies the underlying mechanics of why that is. Machiavelli argues that what we call love or loyalty is maintained by a mere link of obligation.
A link of obligation, okay.
Yeah. Humans are fundamentally driven by self-interest, what he sometimes calls baseness. So they will break that fragile link of obligation the exact moment it benefits their own personal survival.
Which, actually makes total sense if you look at it through the lens of modern behavioral science.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when we are under acute stress or a severe threat, our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for higher-order social contracts and morality, essentially hands the steering wheel over to the amygdala.
Right. Our primal survival instincts take over.
Yeah. And Machiavelli diagnosed that psychological reality 5 centuries before we had the clinical terminology to describe it.
He saw that under pressure, the social fabric dissolves into pure self-preservation.
But that raises a massive problem. If love is useless, and humans are truly this unreliable and driven by pure self-interest, how do you hold a society together?
Or an army or a company.
Exactly. When things get unstable, there has to be some sort of glue.
Well, the glue is fear.
Fear.
Yeah. This is the crux of his famous debate. Is it better to be loved or feared? He admits that, in a perfect world, being both is the ideal scenario.
Sure, everybody wants both.
But he immediately points out that it is practically impossible to maintain both during a crisis. So fear is the safer, more reliable bet.
But why is fear so much more reliable than loyalty?
Because while love relies on that fragile link of obligation that people can just choose to ignore, fear relies on the dread of punishment.
And the dread of punishment never fails.
Exactly. It never fails.
It's like love is a monthly subscription service, right? People will cancel it the second they feel like they can't afford it.
That's a great analogy.
But fear is like a debt collected by the mob. You don't get to cancel it because the consequence is physical ruin.
That is a perfect way to look at it. And the sources provide these stark historical examples to back this up.
Like Hannibal, right?
Yes, take Hannibal. He led a massive, incredibly diverse army of different nationalities and backgrounds across foreign lands.
Over the Alps.
Over the Alps, through freezing conditions and starvation. Yet Hannibal never faced a single mutiny, in good fortune or bad.
That's insane.
It is. And Machiavelli attributes this astounding cohesion entirely to Hannibal's inhuman cruelty.
Which made him revered and terrifying in the eyes of his soldiers. He kept them in line through sheer terror.
Contrast that with Scipio, who was an incredibly virtuous, brilliant, and beloved Roman general.
But Scipio's army actually rebelled against him in Spain.
Right, the cause of the mutiny. Machiavelli says it was Scipio's too great forbearance. He was just too lenient.
So he gave his soldiers more freedom than military discipline could handle, and the moment things got tough...
That link of obligation snapped.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If fear is this ultimate unbreakable steel cable, why doesn't a leader just torture everyone into submission?
Because that backfires.
Right? There has to be a breaking point where fear stops working and just blows up in your face.
There is, and it is the single most important caveat in Machiavelli's entire philosophy.
Okay, what is it?
A leader must inspire fear, but they must absolutely avoid hatred.
Avoid hatred.
Yes, fear keeps people in line and maintains order. Hatred makes people feel cornered. And when people feel cornered, they conspire against you.
And he gives a very specific golden rule for how to avoid being hated, doesn't he?
He does. Keep your hands off people's property and their women.
Yeah.
He writes one of the most memorable lines in the entire book. Men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony.
That is such a dark observation. I mean, it's brutal, but it taps directly into what modern behavioral economists call loss aversion.
Exactly.
Humans are hardwired to fiercely protect their resources because those resources are what guarantee future survival.
You hit the nail on the head. You can punish someone. In Machiavelli's time, you could even execute a family member if you had a stark, undeniable public justification for it.
Right. People might understand it if it's the law.
Eventually, the family would grieve and move on. But if you arbitrarily confiscate their property, their home, their land, their livelihood, you threaten their ongoing daily sense of security.
So as long as people's property and basic honor are safe, they generally remain content, even living under a deeply fearful regime.
It's a brilliant paradox. You have to terrify them enough so they don't step out of line, but you have to leave their stuff alone so they never feel desperate enough to attack you.
Okay, so that explains the internal mechanics. It explains how you keep your own people in check. But how are you supposed to behave in external crises?
Like making alliances.
Yeah, like when you are negotiating treaties or dealing with rival leaders where there is no supreme authority to enforce the rules.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Machiavelli introduces a fascinating metaphor from antiquity. The centaur Chiron, the mythical creature that is half beast and half man.
Oh, right.
He explains that the law is the tool of men, but force and fraud are the tools of beasts. In a chaotic world, playing by the rules of men often just isn't enough to survive.
Therefore, a leader must know how to use both natures.
Exactly. And when you are forced to adopt the nature of the beast, you cannot just be one type of animal. You must be a lion to terrify the wolves, but you must also be a fox to recognize the traps.
Because if you're just a lion, you'll try to fight your way out of everything and you'll walk right into a snare.
Right.
And if you're just a fox, you can spot the snares, but you don't have the brute strength to fight off the wolves. You really need both.
You need both. But his justification for acting like the fox, for being deceptive, is so cynical.
Tell me about it.
It is entirely pragmatic, though. He says, because men are bad and will not keep their promises to you, you are not bound to keep your promises to them.
You are simply operating on the reality of the board you're playing on. Do we have an example of this fox strategy working in the real world from his sources?
A prime example is Pope Alexander VI. Machiavelli writes that this pope did nothing else but deceive men, and yet his deceits always succeeded.
Always succeeded.
Always. He never kept a promise, but he always got what he wanted. Why? Because he understood that people are simple.
They're completely bound by their present necessities.
Yes. He played on their immediate desires and their immediate fears, constantly manipulating the board.
And we see that exact same mentality in the biography of the warlord Castruccio Castracani.
We do. Castruccio was a master of using fraud to win battles. He would feign retreats, set up false camps, sign truces he had absolutely no intention of keeping.
His core belief was that it was the victory that brought the glory, not the methods of achieving it.
Exactly.
It really feels like the ultimate PR strategy. I mean, Machiavelli argues that a leader doesn't actually need to possess all the virtuous qualities like being merciful, faithful, humane, upright, religious.
In fact, actually possessing them and always acting on them is dangerous.
Right. But it is absolutely necessary to appear to have them.
Because of how human perception works, he notes that men judge more by the eye than by the hand.
More by the eye than by the hand.
Everyone can see what you appear to be from a distance, but very few people ever get close enough to touch reality.
And if you translate that into modern cognitive science, he is describing the halo effect, right? And our brain's craving for cognitive ease.
Oh, completely.
The human brain is incredibly lazy. It takes a massive amount of mental energy to investigate whether a leader is actually honest, to dig into the finances, to check the records.
Way too much work.
But if a leader simply puts on a good show, if they smile, speak eloquently, project an image of virtue, our brains take a shortcut.
We accept the illusion because it is vastly easier than digging for the hidden, messy truth.
And Machiavelli points out that those few people who do get close enough to see the messy truth won't dare oppose the massive crowd of people who are happily captivated by the illusion.
They'll just be crushed by public opinion.
Okay, I want to pause here because I'm genuinely confused by a contradiction in the text.
Sure.
You just told me that Machiavelli thinks the masses are fickle, cowardly, and easily manipulated. But then, in Chapter 9, when he talks about who a leader should ally with during a crisis, he says you should rely on the masses instead of the educated elites.
Right.
How does that make any sense? Why build your foundation on people you just called unreliable?
It is a great question, and it comes down to understanding the distinct motivations of different social classes.
Okay.
Machiavelli splits society into two groups: the nobles, or the elites, and the people, meaning the masses.
The elites and the masses, got it.
The elites have a deep-seated, active desire to rule and to oppress others. The masses, however, have a much simpler, passive desire. They simply wish not to be oppressed.
So they just want to be left alone.
Precisely. Allying with the elites during a crisis is incredibly dangerous because the elites view themselves as your equals.
They have vast ambitions.
Exactly. The moment things get difficult, they will betray you to save themselves or to actively take your throne.
But the masses don't want your throne.
No, they just want security. Machiavelli argues that a courageous leader who keeps the people satisfied and protected will never be deceived by them. If you provide basic security, the people become your strongest fortress.
Even though there was literally a proverb at the time that said, "He who builds on the people builds on mud."
Yeah, he actively refutes that proverb. He says it's only true for a private citizen trying to avoid the law.
Oh, I see.
But for a ruler, a leader who has the goodwill of the masses is practically immune to internal conspiracies.
Because conspirators are terrified of the masses.
Exactly. They know that even if they successfully assassinate the leader, they will have to face the wrath of the people who just lost their protector.
Wow. Let's look at how this plays out in real life. Because the sources give us two wild, true crime-level stories about Cesare Borgia manipulating the masses and the elites.
Oh, these stories are incredible.
Set the scene for us in the Romagna region.
So Borgia had just conquered the Romagna, but the region was a disaster. It had been ruled by weak lords for years, so it was completely lawless, full of robberies, factions, and constant violence.
Borgia needs to pacify it and establish order.
Right, so he appoints a minister named Romero d'Orco, and Romero is swift, highly efficient, and unbelievably cruel.
He is the ultimate blunt instrument.
Yes, and Romero does his job. He crushes the lawlessness and restores order in record time. But in doing so, his extreme cruelty generates a massive amount of hatred among the people.
And we know the golden rule: you cannot afford to be hated. The people are feeling cornered.
Exactly.
So what does Borgia do? He executes the ultimate pivot.
He really does.
One morning, the people of the town of Cesena wake up to a horrific scene in the public square. Romero d'Orco has been cut completely in half.
It's gruesome.
His body is left in the plaza with a wooden block and a bloody knife right next to it.
And Machiavelli was actually there. He observed the aftermath firsthand.
Really?
Yeah. He writes that the sheer barbarity of the spectacle left the people simultaneously satisfied and dismayed.
Satisfied and dismayed. It's a brilliant public psychology. Borgia gave the masses exactly what they wanted: the security of law and order.
But then he gave them a scapegoat for the cruelty it took to get there.
He provided justice against the very man who oppressed them, even though Borgia was the one who ordered the oppression in the first place.
Right. He kept his own hands perfectly clean in the eyes of the public.
He provided security, and he avoided hatred. It is textbook manipulation.
And it transitions perfectly into how Borgia dealt with the elites, which is his absolute masterpiece of playing the fox. This is the famous trap at Senigallia.
Right, because Borgia starts to realize that his elite allies' families like the Orsini and the Vitelli are getting too powerful.
They are exactly the kind of nobles Machiavelli warns about.
They see themselves as Borgia's equals, and they are starting to plot against him. So how does he handle them?
He doesn't attack them directly with the lion, he plays the fox. He pretends to be completely unbothered by their plotting.
They're sneaky.
Very. He offers them lavish gifts. He sends messages of false reconciliation. He plays on their greed and their desire to maintain their own status.
He literally kills them with kindness until they agree to meet him in the town of Senigallia to celebrate their renewed alliance.
And Machiavelli provides this chilling detail about one of the warlords, Vitellozzo Vitelli, arriving at the town.
Yes. Tell us about that.
So, Vitellozzo rides into Senigallia on a mule, unarmed. Machiavelli notes that he looked deeply dejected, almost as if his gut instinct knew he was walking into a trap.
Wow.
But his own self-interest and the incredible illusion of peace that Borgia had crafted completely overrode his survival instincts.
The fox spotted the snare, but Borgia was a better fox.
Exactly. The warlords arrive, they go into a back room with Borgia to discuss terms, and the moment the doors close behind them, they are seized by Borgia's men.
And that very night, they are all strangled.
In one brilliant, deceptive stroke, Borgia eliminated the treacherous elites who threatened his power.
From that point on, he relied only on his own forces and the goodwill of the pacified masses in the Romagna.
It was a clean sweep.
So, when we step back and synthesize all of this, the prince, the life of Castruccio, the incredibly dark accounts of Cesare Borgia, what does it all mean?
That's the core of it, really.
Machiavelli's worldview isn't just about being a comic book villain or being evil for the sake of it. It is a hyper-pragmatic clinical observation.
He is arguing that in times of extreme uncertainty, the thin veneer of civilization melts away.
Humans default to their primal self-preservation. Loyalty is fleeting because it's just an obligation. Fear is reliable because it is tied directly to survival.
And most importantly, appearances matter infinitely more than reality, because people judge by what they see, not by what they touch.
Which raises an incredibly important question for you, the listener. It is very easy to look at Renaissance Italy men getting cut in half in town squares, warlords being strangled at banquets, and dismiss it all as ancient history.
But while the stakes today might not involve literal physical assassination, these fundamental observations about human self-interest are completely timeless.
The cognitive biases, the halo effect, the primal desire for security over truth.
These mechanics still echo loudly in our modern institutions, our corporate boardrooms, and our political arenas.
When a crisis hits a modern organization, do people actually rely on the link of obligation, or do they immediately scatter to protect their own patrimony?
It forces you to look at the structures around you completely differently.
It really does. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Machiavelli writes that in the world there are only the vulgar, meaning that the vast majority of people are always taken in by appearances and the final outcome of an event.
Very few people ever see the hidden gears turning behind the curtain.
Take a look at the world around you today. Look at the media you consume, the corporate narratives you are sold, the leaders you watch on a daily basis.
Yeah.
How much of modern society is still just a massive theater of foxes? How much of it is utilizing the exact same PR strategies Cesare Borgia used, keeping the masses safely satisfied with illusions, while the elites strictly guard their own survival?
The tools and the technology have evolved, for sure, but the underlying psychology of the centaur, the balance of law, force, and fraud, remains exactly the same.
At the start of this deep dive, we talked about how human nature in a crisis isn't a clean, predictable mathematical equation.
No, it is a muddy swamp of survival instincts and shifting loyalties.
Machiavelli didn't try to fix the swamp. He just handed us a pair of goggles that lets us see clearly through the mud.
And once you put them on and see the gears turning, you really can't unsee it.
No, you really can't.